Welcome to IslamicDonut.com.
Thank you so much for having me. It's great to be here.
I'm really glad we're having this conversation today.
Yeah.
So, to kick things off, I want you, the listener, to just imagine a feeling for a second.
Okay, I'm tracking with you.
I don't know, you're driving your car, or maybe you're just standing at the sink doing the dishes.
Yeah.
Or folding laundry.
Right, just doing something completely mundane.
Exactly. And suddenly, out of nowhere, your stomach just completely drops. Your heart rate spikes. You just freeze.
That awful sinking feeling.
Yes.
Yeah.
Because you just remembered a deadline that you completely, utterly missed. And we all know that physiological reaction, right?
Oh, absolutely. It's visceral.
It really is. And usually it's a secular thing, like you forgot to pay the electricity bill, or you missed a massive filing deadline at work.
Or your car registration expired like 3 months ago.
Oh, man, yes.
Yeah.
And you immediately start calculating the late fees in your head.
Yeah.
Right? You're anticipating the angry emails from your boss, or dreading dealing with the DMV.
It's pure dread.
It is. That sinking feeling is just universal. But I want to pivot that. Take that exact same feeling of sudden, paralyzing realization.
The stomach drop.
Yeah, stomach drop. And imagine that instead of a utility bill or a work project, the deadline you missed was a foundational spiritual obligation.
Like your Zakat.
Like your Zakat, exactly. And that's what we're going to unpack today. What actually happens when you miss a Zakat payment.
It's such a crucial topic, and honestly, it causes so much anxiety for people.
It really does. But before we get into the weeds, I want to establish something right off the bat. This is a no judgment, no shame zone.
I love that.
I mean, we are human beings,
Yeah.
We get distracted, life moves incredibly fast, financial records get messy, we forget things.
We do, and I think the first thing we have to realize is that the spiritual framework is very different from the secular one.
How so? Like, in terms of the consequences?
Exactly. When a secular deadline passes, the immediate consequence is usually punitive. The whole system is basically designed to penalize you for your forgetfulness.
Right, they want their money.
Yeah, your credit score drops, your power gets shut off, or a massive fine gets slapped on you. The modern world operates on these really hard, unforgiving cutoffs.
Right. You miss the window, and a door slams in your face.
Exactly. But the spiritual framework we are looking at operates on a profoundly different foundation.
Which is what?
Well, yes, missing a spiritual obligation carries an immense weight. But the architecture of the system isn't punitive. It's actually built on divine mercy.
Built on mercy. Okay, that's already a relief to hear.
Right. It expects human fallibility. It knows we're going to forget. So instead of just shutting the door, locking you out, and throwing away the key...
Like a bank would.
Exactly like a bank would. Instead of that, it provides a very clear, very structured, and highly logical path back to right standing.
Okay, so let's figure out what that path looks like. Because I think to understand how to fix a missed payment, we actually have to fundamentally rethink our definition of what Zakat even is in the first place.
I completely agree. People have a lot of misconceptions about it.
Yeah, I think a lot of people mentally file it under this broad category of just a charity donation.
Which is what is known as sadaqah. And that's the first major hurdle we have to get over.
Right, because if you look at it just as charity, then missing it feels like, well, it feels like you just forgot to do something nice for someone.
Right. It feels like a missed opportunity. A mild bummer, maybe, but nothing structural.
But it is structural, isn't it?
It's entirely structural. Zakat is not an optional good deed. It is literally one of the 5 pillars of Islam.
Pillar.
Think about the engineering of a physical building. There is a massive difference between, say, a decorative column in the lobby.
Which looks nice, but doesn't do much.
Right, and a load-bearing pillar holding up the roof. Zakat is the load-bearing pillar.
Wow, okay.
If you neglect a pillar, the building might not collapse on your head that very same afternoon, but a massive structural gap has been created in your spiritual foundation.
And you can't just ignore a structural gap.
No, you can't. That gap doesn't just fix itself over time. It must be actively, physically repaired.
So if a payment is missed, it doesn't just evaporate.
Not at all.
Because with a lot of things in life, if the window closes, the event is just gone. Like if I sleep through my alarm and I miss a 9 a.m. morning meeting.
You can't just have the meeting later.
Right. I can't walk into the empty conference room at 2 p.m. and have the meeting by myself. The meeting is gone the moment passed.
That's a great analogy for how we normally think about time.
But the guidance surrounding this
Yes.
suggests Zakat is more like Well, it's more like waking up late for the dawn prayer, Farger,
Yeah,
right?
exactly like that.
You don't just look at the clock, see the sun is up, and say, well, I'll just catch the next one tomorrow.
Right, you don't just skip it.
You perform the prayer the absolute second you wake up and realize you missed it, even if it's 8 a.m.
Exactly. And the Prophet actually taught that specific principle regarding missed prayers. There is no expiation for a forgotten prayer other than performing it the exact moment it is remembered.
The moment it's remembered.
Yes, you don't get to just skip it and move on. And Zakat operates on that exact same theological logic.
So it sticks to you.
It does. If you miss it, it does not convert into voluntary charity, and it certainly does not disappear into the ether. It remains a definitive, binding debt.
A wajib.
A wajib, yes. Upon your shoulders until it is explicitly settled. The obligation is sticky, it attaches to you, and it stays there.
Okay, I get the logic. But let me push back a little bit here, just from the perspective of someone who might be feeling overwhelmed by a backlog.
Sure, go for it.
Why doesn't the passing of time just wash it away?
What do you mean?
Let's say an entire lunar year has passed.
Yeah.
A brand new Zakat year has started. In the secular world, we have things like statutes of limitations.
Right. Right, debts eventually get written off.
Exactly. They get written off or they expire after 7 years.
Right.
Why isn't there a spiritual statute of limitations where the old obligation just resets so you can start fresh?
That's a very fair question. But a spiritual statute of limitations would actually fundamentally contradict the concept of divine justice.
How so?
We have to look at who the money actually belongs to. The wealth you owe in Zakat does not belong to you.
It belongs to the recipients.
Exactly. It legally and spiritually belongs to the designated categories of recipients. The poor, the needy, the traveler, and so on.
So it's their money sitting in my bank account.
Precisely. So if time could just wash away your obligation, it would mean time could wash away their rightful claim to that sustenance.
Oh, wow. I never thought about it like that.
Right. You'd essentially be waiting out the clock to keep money that literally isn't yours.
That would be incredibly unjust to the poor.
Exactly. But here is the fascinating part. The strictness of this rule, the fact that the debt never, ever expires, actually provides immense psychological relief.
Wait, really? Because I don't think most people associate a permanent, unexpiring financial debt with relief. That sounds stressful. How does that work?
I know it sounds counterintuitive, but think about it, because the lack of an expiration date means the opportunity for redemption is never permanently closed.
Oh, okay. I see where you're going.
If the deadline passing meant the door was locked forever, you would have to live with a permanent, unfixable failure on your record.
You'd just be carrying that failure forever.
Right. But the strictness of the debt remaining active means you always retain the agency to make it right. You haven't failed permanently.
We were just delayed.
You're just delayed. The moment you remember, you pay it with the intention of fulfilling that specific missed obligation. You turn back with sincerity, and the path back is always open, precisely because the debt never vanishes.
That completely changes the emotional temperature of the situation.
It really does.
It's not a locked door. It's just a pending task in your spiritual inbox.
That's a perfect way to put it. A pending task.
So, understanding that this is a persistent debt that doesn't just go away, I think we need to look at the most intense, time-sensitive version of this obligation.
Ah, yes, the narrow windows.
Well, this is the one where the window for payment is incredibly narrow, and frankly, it is so easily missed by really well-meaning people. Let's talk about Zakat al-Fitr.
Zakat al-Fitr is very unique because it is tied directly to a specific event. The culmination of the month of Ramadan and the immediate beginning of the Eid festival.
And the mechanical requirement is super tight, right?
Extremely tight. It must be given before the Eid prayer takes place.
Wait, so like before you even go to the mosque?
Ideally, yes. Before you even leave your house to go to the prayer area that morning. That is the window.
Okay, we have to talk about the sociology of Eid morning because, and anyone listening who has kids knows this, it is absolute chaos.
Complete and utter chaos. Beautiful chaos, but chaos.
Beautiful, joyous chaos, yeah.
Yeah.
But you have this intense rush of waking everyone up, making sure the kids are dressed in their stiff new clothes.
Trying to find everyone's shoes.
Yes. Preparing the morning food, organizing family logistics, figuring out whose house you're going to first.
Coordinating with relatives, finding parking at a crowded masjid.
It is a perfect storm for human forgetfulness. I mean, the festive excitement and the administrative stress completely override your working memory. You're not thinking about making a digital payment.
It really is the perfect storm. And honestly, anyone who has found themselves suddenly realizing they forgot their Zakat al-Fitr in the middle of hugging family members after the prayer,
Oh, that would be terrible.
it is. They know that awful sinking feeling.
So what do the scholars say about missing that specific tight window?
The scholarly consensus across the major schools of thought, and this includes the Shafi school, is very clear on this. Delaying Zakat al-Fitr beyond the day of Eid without a valid, compelling excuse is considered a sin
A sin. That's heavy. Why is it treated so seriously?
because it disrupts the communal joy that the Zakat is meant to ensure.
What do you mean by that?
Well, that specific payment is designed to ensure the less fortunate have enough food and provision to celebrate that specific day without having to beg.
So they can enjoy Eid just like everyone else.
Exactly. So if you delay it, you are actively depriving them of the celebration on that day. And because of that, the delay requires sincere repentance.
But the mechanical requirement to actually hand over the money, that doesn't drop just because you missed the window, right?
No, absolutely not. The requirement to pay it remains as a makeup payment.
What is that called again?
It's called qada. The physical debt still has to change hands. Now, the intent matters deeply here.
Right, whether you forgot or just ignored it.
Exactly. The fact that you genuinely forgot in the chaos of the morning, rather than maliciously withholding it, is met with divine mercy.
Okay, that's good.
But the mechanical requirement must be fulfilled to actually lift the spiritual weight.
These aren't just abstract rules. These are deeply human moments that cause real, tangible distress.
They really are. People get very anxious about this.
I remember hearing a story about a young father who called into a charity helpline. This was 3 entire days after Eid.
3 days. Oh, wow.
Yeah, 3 days. And he was completely panicked. He'd been so laser focused on his kids that morning, getting their outfits ready, making sure their Eid morning was totally magical.
That the zakat completely slipped his mind.
It completely slipped his mind. And when he realized it 3 days later, his immediate question to the counselor on the phone wasn't just about how to pay the late fee or whatever.
What did he ask?
He asked, "Is my fasting accepted?" He was terrified that his morning forgetfulness had essentially voided his entire month of fasting during Ramadan.
Oh, man. That is heartbreaking.
Yeah.
But it is an incredibly common fear.
Really? People think their whole Ramadan is ruined.
Yes. People who take their faith seriously are often the absolute hardest on themselves when they slip up.
That makes sense.
There's actually another powerful example of a widow. She was in her 60s, and she was spending her very first Eid alone after the passing of her husband.
Oh, that's so tough.
It is. And normally her husband handled all the financial logistics. Or maybe her grief just consumed her mental bandwidth that morning, but she completely forgot.
And how did she react?
She wept out of absolute fear. She thought that because she forgot her Zakat al-Fitr, her fasting was invalidated.
That is just crushing.
It is crushing. It layers this intense spiritual despair over what is essentially an administrative mistake.
Right. So let me ask you directly for the listener who might be freaking out. If someone finds themselves in that young father's shoes or the widow's shoes, the anxiety would be suffocating. Does missing that tight morning window actually mean the entire month of fasting? All those long, difficult days of discipline is just wiped out and rejected?
The answer is one of absolute firm reassurance, no.
No. Yeah.
The fasting remains valid. The scholars emphasize this heavily. The fasting of those who do so sincerely is accepted by Allah.
So it's not deleted.
It is not deleted.
Yeah.
Your worship and discipline during the month of Ramadan are not suddenly wiped out by a forgotten logistical payment on Eid morning.
That is a massive relief.
It really is. The Zakat al-Fitr is a separate, distinct, lingering debt. It is essentially a separate line item on your spiritual ledger.
I like that analogy. A separate line item.
Exactly. Your fasting is intact. You simply need to address this outstanding debt immediately to lift that specific weight from your shoulders.
So, practically speaking, for the person who suddenly remembers on day 3 of Eid, their next step is pretty straightforward then.
Very straightforward. They take a deep breath, they recognize the mercy in the fact that they remembered it all, and they process the payment immediately.
No waiting around.
No waiting. And they do it with the explicit internal intention that this is a make-up payment for the missed obligation. They repent for the delay, but they do not despair over their Ramadan.
That completely separates the administrative failure from the spiritual devotion. which is exactly the relief people need.
It is?
Okay, so having resolved that intense time crunch window of Zakat al-Fitr, let's move from a shared communal deadline where literally the entire community is trying to hit the same morning window to a highly individualized rolling calendar.
Right, let's talk about Zakat al-Mal, the wealth tax.
Because Zakat al-Mal operates on a completely different mechanism, doesn't it?
It does. While Zakat al-Fitr is tied to that specific communal calendar of Ramadan and Eid, Zakat al-Mal operates on your own personal lunar fiscal year.
My own personal year.
Yes, the clock starts ticking. The anniversary is basically triggered on the exact date that your accumulated wealth first exceeded the nisab threshold.
And just to remind everyone, the nisab is that minimum amount of baseline wealth you have to hold to even be liable for zakat, right?
Exactly. So your personal year starts on the day you cross that threshold.
Which means everyone's date is going to be totally different.
Completely different.
Like my date might be right in the middle of the month of Shaban, before Ramadan even starts.
And someone else's date might be the 3rd of Muharram, the very first month of the Islamic calendar.
Right. And every single lunar year, when your specific anniversary rolls around, your zakat becomes due based on your total qualifying wealth on that exact day.
Exactly. And because it's a personalized rolling date, it doesn't come with the communal reminders of Eid.
There's no festive buildup.
No festive buildup, no sermons at the mosque specifically reminding everyone that very day. It is incredibly easy for a busy person to just let that random Tuesday in Shaban slip by unnoticed.
Okay, so let's play out a scenario here. Let's say my date was 2 months ago and I completely missed it.
Okay.
And I just remembered today, I'm sitting here listening to this, and I realize, oh no, I missed my date. The rule is that I have to calculate the amount I owe based on the market value of my assets on the exact date the zakat became due, right? Not today's current date.
That is correct.
Which is fascinating. This is basically like taking a financial photograph.
A financial photograph. I like that.
Yeah, you are freezing time. Like, if I have a business arrangement where I know you 2.5% of my apple harvest on a Tuesday, it doesn't matter if the apples are suddenly worth twice as much at the market by Friday.
Right.
Or if half of them rotted and they're worth less. We use Tuesday's numbers to settle Tuesday's debt.
That is the perfect way to conceptualize it. The scholars are very specific about this chronological rule. And if we explore the underlying macroeconomic philosophy here, it is deeply equitable.
Equitable how?
Well, why do we freeze time? It prevents the donor from being unfairly penalized if their asset values drop significantly after the due date.
Oh, that makes sense. Like if the stock market crashes.
Exactly. You shouldn't owe more money than you actually possessed at the time the obligation was triggered just because the market crashed later. You are taxed on what you held then.
Okay, but it works in reverse as well, doesn't it?
It does. It prevents shortchanging the rightful recipients if the asset values happen to rise.
So if my stock portfolio skyrockets a month after my missed due date,
the recipients don't retroactively get a cut of your new profits because those profits occurred in the next zakat year and will be accounted for on your next anniversary.
wow, so this mechanism forces historical honesty.
It really does. It completely removes the temptation to try and time the market with your spiritual obligations, waiting for a dip in the market to pay less.
Because the math is the math.
The math is the math on that specific historical date.
Now, this gets incredibly complex in the modern economy.
Oh, absolutely.
Take the story of a professional donor who had a highly diverse cryptocurrency portfolio. And, I mean, crypto is notoriously volatile.
Extremely volatile. Bitcoin can swing 10% in a single afternoon.
Right. So this individual realized he had missed his Zakat anniversary date by 4 entire months.
4 months with crypto is a lifetime.
A literal lifetime in market terms. And he was completely paralyzed by anxiety. He was staring at his portfolio, which had swung wildly up and down over those 120 days.
Just staring at red and green candles.
Exactly. And he was trying to figure out how to calculate a fluctuating digital asset over a missed 4-month time period. The cognitive load was so high, he just froze.
That paralysis is extremely common, especially with volatile assets. People just get overwhelmed.
So how did the financial photograph rule help him?
It cuts right through all that modern complexity. He didn't need to worry about the 4 months of daily fluctuations at all.
He just ignored them.
He just needed the snapshot from the exact due date. He went back into his digital wallet records, pulled his exchange balances for that one specific historical day, 4 months ago.
And just use the exchange rate from that day.
Exactly.
Yeah.
He applied the historical exchange rate of the coins on that exact day, and he found a concrete, mathematically exact path forward. The rule eliminates all the guesswork.
That is so practical. And I love how the story ends, too. Once he had the concrete number based on that historical date, he paid it. But he actually went a step further.
What did he do?
He added extra voluntary charity, extra tzedakah on top of it.
Oh, wow. That's beautiful.
Right? Not because the calculation required it, the math was already settled, but simply as a personal gesture of repentance for the 4-month delay. He turned a moment of administrative anxiety into a moment of extreme generosity.
That's incredible. And, the anxiety he felt wasn't just mathematical, it was psychological.
What do you mean?
He was stressed because the delay, even though it was a total accident, felt heavy. Which means we actually need to address a much darker, much more complex psychological reality here.
Uh-oh. I feel a pivot coming.
Yeah, what happens when the delay wasn't an innocent accident?
Yeah. This is the uncomfortable pivot.
Yeah.
Because up until now, we've been talking about genuine forgetfulness, right?
Right.
The chaos of Eid morning, the missed calendar alert, getting busy at work. But we really need to explore the psychology of delay when it crosses over into willful negligence.
Because theologically and practically, there's a massive distinction between forgetting and deliberately delaying.
Like a completely different category of action.
Exactly. Forgetting is a flaw of human hardware. It's just how our brains work, and it is met with built-in divine mercy, but deliberate delay.
Knowing it's due and just not doing it.
Right. Knowing the obligation is due, looking at your bank account, seeing you have the liquid means to pay it, and actively choosing to withhold it. That incurs sin.
That's a conscious choice.
It is. It requires a much deeper level of sincere repentance because it borders on open negligence of a divine command.
Let's talk about how this actually plays out in normal life, though. Because, let's be real, sometimes we don't forget entirely in the innocent sense. We just sort of put it off.
Procrastination.
Yeah, because life is expensive. The mortgage is due, groceries are up 20%, maybe there's a sudden medical bill hanging over your head.
The car needs new tires.
Exactly.
Yeah.
You look at the Zakat amount and you tell yourself, well, I'll pay it next month when my bonus comes in. Or I'll pay it when things settle down.
The things never really settle down.
Never. But next month becomes the month after. And suddenly a year has passed, or maybe 2 years. And the accumulated amount you owe across multiple missed years is so massive that you feel entirely trapped.
You're in a hole.
Right. You look at that huge number, you freeze, and you completely avoid the issue because the guilt and the financial weight are just too heavy to process. It's like having a stack of past due bills on your kitchen counter. Eventually, you just stop opening your mail. Isn't it human nature to just freeze and avoid it entirely when the guilt gets too heavy?
You have just perfectly described one of the most common psychological traps regarding wealth.
I think we've all been there with something in our lives.
Absolutely. The guilt of willful delay compounds over time. The longer you wait, the heavier the guilt gets.
Which makes you avoid looking at the numbers even more.
Which makes the delay longer, which
Yeah.
makes the sin compound further. It is a completely paralyzing cycle of avoidance.
So how do you break it? If someone is listening right now and they know deep down they owe 3 years of back Zakat and the total number terrifies them, what is the actual mechanism to break the freeze?
Action is the only thing that breaks the paralysis. The biggest mistake people make in this scenario is adopting an all-or-nothing mindset.
Like they have to pay it all at once.
Yes. They think they have to clear the entire massive 3-year backlog in one single transaction today, or else their repentance doesn't count.
That's not true.
It's not true. Do not let the massive total stop you from making a partial payment right now.
Even just a fraction of it.
Yes. The moment you calculate the historical debt, make a payment, even a small, partial one, and do it with sincere repentance.
Just to get the ball rolling.
Exactly. That physical action of transferring funds shatters the psychological freeze. You are no longer a person avoiding the debt. You are a person actively paying it off.
You change your identity in that moment.
You do. You combine that immediate partial payment with a concrete, realistic financial plan to clear the rest of the backlog over time.
It's like breaking the seal on a project you've been procrastinating on. Just writing the first sentence of the essay changes your entire momentum.
We see this recurring phenomenon with donors all the time. People will finally come forward and confess they have been carrying the secret guilt of deliberate delay for years.
They eat at them.
It eats at their conscience. And the profound, visible, physical relief they experience the exact moment they finally take that first tangible step to clear the backlog. It is incredible to witness.
Like a weight literally lifting off them.
They can finally breathe again. The door back to grace swings wide open the moment you take that first physical action.
That is so encouraging. But, to prevent getting into that painful cycle of guilt and catch-up in the first place, I think we have to look deeper than just setting better calendar alerts.
Oh, absolutely. The calendar alert is just a tool.
Right. We need to look at the foundational mindset we bring to our finances. Because if giving away 2.5% of your wealth feels like a massive loss, you're always going to subconsciously try to delay it.
You'll always find an excuse.
We have to redefine who actually owns the money sitting in our bank accounts.
This brings us to the absolute core of Islamic economic philosophy, the concept of the amanah.
The trust.
Yes, wealth is fundamentally viewed as a trust and amanah from Allah. It is not something you generated entirely of your own independent power.
Even if you worked hard for it.
Even then, your intellect, your health, the circumstances of the market, the country you were born in, all of these were provided to you. Therefore, you do not have absolute, unquestionable ownership over your wealth.
It's conditionally yours.
It is given to you temporarily as both a test and a responsibility.
Okay, so under that framework, Zakat isn't me taking a piece of my pie and deciding to be super generous and give it away.
Not at all. Zakat is the mandatory act of returning a very specific, designated portion of that trust to its rightful legal owners.
And who are the owners?
The Quran explicitly outlines 8 categories of recipients: the poor, the needy, those in bondage, those burdened by crippling debt, the wayfarer, and so on.
So Islam established this mechanism 14 centuries ago to ensure that wealth continuously circulates through society.
Exactly. It prevents wealth from just pooling and stagnating among the elite, which, as we know, is a major issue in modern macroeconomics.
The rich getting richer while the money just sits there.
Right. So when you pay zakat, you are not losing your wealth. You are purifying what remains in your possession. You are legally separating what is yours to enjoy from what was never yours to begin with.
Let's use an analogy for how we view our bank balances, because I think this helps visualize it. You aren't giving away your own money. You're essentially just a courier.
A courier. I like that.
Yeah, like you are a delivery driver holding a package. The package was entrusted to you, placed in your truck, but it has someone else's name on it.
It was meant for them all along.
Exactly. If an Amazon driver drops off a package at the right house, they don't sit in the truck crying that they lost a package or that their net worth decreased.
No, they fulfilled their job.
Right. They fulfilled their job. They delivered the trust to the person who owned it.
The courier analogy frames the emotional reality perfectly. You are a custodian of the package. And what is really fascinating is what happens to the custodian's remaining wealth once the package is delivered.
What happens?
This brings us to the profound concept of baraka.
Okay, baraka. That usually gets translated simply as blessings.
It translates roughly to blessing, yes, but it's much deeper than that. It's a divine multiplier effect.
The multiplier effect. How does that work?
Well, there is a powerful verse in the Quran, Surah 30, verse 39, which contrasts the concept of interest with zakat.
Okay, comparing the two.
Right. Interest mathematically increases your wealth on paper. Your bank balance goes up. But it lacks divine blessing. It is spiritually hollow and often built on the exploitation of others' debt.
It's empty growth.
Exactly. But zakat, given sincerely, mathematically decreases your wealth on paper. You have less money in your account today than you did yesterday, yet it multiplies your actual prosperity in ways that completely defy spreadsheets.
I think people really struggle with this part because the spreadsheet is stubborn,
The math is the math.
The math is the map.
Yeah.
If I have $100 and I give away $2.50, I have $97.50 left.
On paper, yes.
Right. So how does this spiritual multiplier actually manifest in real, tangible life?
It manifests in the quality, the longevity, and the reach of what remains in your possession.
Can you give me an example?
Sure. Donors consistently report better, more ethical business outcomes. They experience unexpected ease in family matters. Maybe a car that was supposed to break down and cost thousands in repairs inexplicably lasts another 3 years.
Oh, wow.
Or maybe a looming medical issue resolves without an expensive procedure. Most importantly, it manifests in a lighter, more content heart. The constant gnawing anxiety over hoarding wealth and protecting assets just dissipates.
You stop stressing so much about holding on to every penny.
Exactly. Baraka is the divine expansion of the utility and the peace associated with your remaining wealth. Your $97.50 goes further and brings more peace than the $100 ever could have.
That is profound. So if we are simply the couriers of this trust and we want to experience that baraka, how do we ensure we never drop the package?
We have to be intentional.
Right, because how do we make sure we never miss these deadlines again? Relying on sheer willpower and memory, as we've already established with the Eid morning chaos and the forgotten calendar dates, is a terrible strategy.
It is a recipe for failure.
Our hardware is flawed. We are forgetful. We need bulletproof systems.
And the most successful, consistent donors do not rely on their memory. They do not wake up every day trying to remember if it's their Zakat anniversary.
They'd go crazy if they did.
They would. They build structural systems around their obligations so they don't even have to think about it. They choose specific, unmissable, highly visible dates.
So what are some of the practical ways people set these systems up?
Well, many people choose to align their personalized Zakat al-Mal date with a significant calendar event to ensure they don't miss it.
Like moving the date to something obvious.
Exactly. The 1st of Ramadan or the 15th of Ramadan are incredibly popular because the entire spiritual atmosphere of the month acts as this massive, unavoidable, natural reminder.
You literally can't ignore Ramadan.
Right. But it doesn't even have to be a religious date. Some people use their own birthday, or the start of the secular tax year, or their wedding anniversary.
Oh, tying it to an anniversary is smart.
The date itself matters far less than the consistency of the anchor. And beyond just choosing a date, they use modern technology and sensory anchors to automate the habit deep into their lifestyle.
Okay, the idea of a sensory anchor is fascinating to me because this is where human psychology actually meets faith.
It is.
There is an incredible story of a mother of 4 living in Canada who utilizes this perfectly. She mathematically calculates her Zakat owed ahead of time.
Okay, so the math is done.
The math is done. But she doesn't just hit pay on her banking app on a random Tuesday afternoon while she's distracted by her kids.
What does she do?
She waits for a very specific, visceral moment. She physically hits the pay button on her phone at the exact millisecond she tastes her first date to break her fast at iftar during Ramadan.
Oh, that is brilliant. She has bypassed her fallible memory entirely.
Entirely. Her brain now permanently associates the intensely sweet, satisfying taste of that medjool date. The physical relief of breaking a 15-hour fast with the fulfillment of her spiritual obligation.
That is such a powerful anchor.
It is. The sensory experience of eating the date is inextricably linked to paying her zakat. She literally cannot eat a date at iftar without her nervous system reminding her of her giving.
She wired the obligation directly into her sensory experience. And what makes these kinds of robust systems so viable today is the incredible modern infrastructure available to us.
The tech is caught up.
It really has. We are no longer limited to writing physical checks, waiting a week for them to clear, or physically handing over bags of grain. The broad acceptance of digital assets has completely revolutionized the speed and efficiency of how we deliver this trust.
This is where the mechanics get really futuristic, but in the absolute best way possible.
It's amazing to watch.
We are talking about the broad integration and acceptance of digital currencies, from Bitcoin, Ethereum, Stellar, Solana, Ripple, Litecoin, and Tron, to stablecoins that are pegged to fiat, like Tether, USDC, and PayPal USD.
The options for transferring wealth are virtually endless and instantaneous now.
If we connect this back to the idea of being a courier, modern blockchain technology makes you the most efficient courier in human history.
It really does.
Let's break down exactly how this works, because the mechanics are mind-blowing. Let's look at a real-world impact story from Ramadan 2025.
Okay, let's hear it.
There was a donor in the UK who had their system set up, and they sent a substantial Zakat payment using Ethereum.
A very common method now.
Right. And within 48 hours, just 2 days, that digital string of code floating on a decentralized blockchain was converted, transferred across borders, and turned into warm, physical iftar meals for hungry families simultaneously in Yemen, in Gaza, and in Uganda.
That is just incredible.
I mean, how does a line of code become a bowl of soup in a war zone in 48 hours without getting bogged down in international banking delays?
This is the power of bypassing traditional financial checkpoints. In a traditional system, a wire transfer from London to Uganda might take 5 business days.
And it gets hit with fees.
It gets hit with correspondent banking fees, it faces currency conversion delays, it requires manual clearance from multiple banks.
It's slow and expensive.
It is. But with Ethereum or stablecoins on a blockchain, the transfer of value is instantaneous and borderless. The donor sends the crypto to the charity's digital wallet.
Instantly.
Instantly. The charity, utilizing smart contracts or immediate exchange partnerships, liquidates that crypto into local fiat currency or stable coins for their field partners right there on the ground.
So they get the funds immediately.
Yes. Those field partners, who are already embedded in Yemen or Gaza, receive the localized funds instantly. They walk into a local market, buy the rice, the meat, the cooking oil, and distribute the hot meals.
Digital numbers instantly became human dignity.
That's exactly what it is.
A donor sitting on a couch in a living room in London pushed a button on their phone. And less than 2 days later, a family thousands of miles away who had absolutely nothing to break their fast with was nourished. That is the amana, the trust, being fulfilled at the speed of light.
But, and this is a big, but with that kind of instantaneous speed, there has to be an immense amount of trust in the infrastructure.
You have to know where your money is going.
Exactly. If you are sending digital assets across the globe in seconds, you need to know the courier service, the charitable platform, isn't taking a slice of the pie for themselves to cover their own overhead.
And this is where the concept of a 100% Zakat policy becomes absolutely critical to the whole operation.
Is non-negotiable.
When you utilize platforms that guarantee a 100% policy, it means exactly what it sounds like.
Absolutely.
Zero administrative fees, no overhead costs, no server fees, and no marketing budgets are siphoned off your mandatory Zakat payment.
That's not a single cent.
Every single cent or every single fraction of a Bitcoin goes directly to those 8 categories of people who Sharia dictates qualify to receive it.
It honors the sacred trust of the donor. It ensures that your intention is preserved perfectly from the moment it leaves your digital wallet to the moment it physically reaches the hands of the recipient.
But wait, how does the charity actually survive then?
Great question. The charity finds other ways, like voluntary tips or separate administrative funding pools to keep the lights on, ensuring the Zakat itself remains entirely untouched.
That is such a robust ethical system. We have covered an immense amount of ground today.
We really have, from the theology to the technology.
We have moved from the initial visceral panic of a missed deadline through the theological strictness of treating Zakat as a load-bearing pillar. We explored the emotional chaos of Eid mourning.
We untacked the financial photograph of crypto volatility.
Right. And detailed the modern blockchain infrastructure that lets us deliver our trusts across the globe instantly. So as we wrap up, I want to synthesize this entire conversation into a clear blueprint for action.
Let's give them the steps.
Sitting here listening to this, your first move isn't to feel guilty. Your first move is to calculate.
Gathering your records is the essential first step. Don't guess. Know your dates.
Pull up the statements.
Look at your bank statements and find out exactly when your Nesab anniversary was. And use the tools available.
Like the digital calculators.
Exactly. There are highly sophisticated crypto and asset Zakat calculators out there that can help you find your exact historical number based on that snapshot in time. You need to find the exact concrete number to remove the anxiety of the unknown.
Because once you have the number, the second step is to act now.
Act immediately.
Do not delay until next week. Do not wait for a better time when you feel more financially secure. Break the psychological paralysis today.
Even if it's a partial payment.
Exactly. Even if it's a partial payment, just to get the ball rolling. The physical act of giving immediately shatters the guilt and opens the door back to grace. You transition from someone avoiding a debt to someone actively clearing it.
And the final step is to rest easy.
Rest easy. Once you've paid, forgive yourself. The system is built on divine mercy for a reason.
It expects you to be human.
Then, set your system up so it never happens again. Choose your unmissable date for next year. Create your sensory anchor, whether it's the taste of a date at iftar or a calendar alert tied to a major life event.
Automate the habit.
Automate the process so you never have to feel that stomach-dropping panic again.
Yeah.
You can actually enjoy the peace and the baraka that follows, clearing your spiritual debts.
As we close, I want to leave you, the listener, with one final lingering thought to mull over in the days ahead. We've spent all this time discussing how to properly return the specific 2.5% of wealth that belongs to others. But if we truly deeply internalize the concept of the amana, that all our wealth is just a temporary trust, that the money sitting in our accounts is essentially borrowed rather than owned,
That's a huge mindset shift.
It is. How does that change the way we justify spending the other 97.5% on ourselves every single day?
Wow. That is a question that completely reorients how we interact with the material world.
Yeah.
Thank you for walking through the mechanics and the philosophy of this with me.
It was an absolute pleasure.
To everyone listening, take a deep breath, take action, and visit www.islamicdonut.com.